NASCAR has had its championship event, or its championship weekend, at Phoenix since 2020. They'll once again have it next year in 2025. But in 2026, it could be different. Homestead seems to be making a push. They have their upcoming race in the spring of 25 to potentially give themselves some time to renovate, to, just really, I don't know, brighten up the place or do what they need to do to potentially make it a championship racetrack once again. But what if we rotate the championship? It could happen. It could happen. NASCAR has talked about it, so let's read this report. NASCAR is debating whether to start rotating the championship race to different markets in the coming years, and the venues being considered would go beyond just Phoenix Raceway and Homestead-Miami Speedway, according to NASCAR COO Steve O'Donnell. Fans have been calling for a shakeup of the championship race, and it appears like NASCAR is taking heed by considering it. O'Donnell said last week that Phoenix has been an incredible host city for the championship, with how the market embraces the sport, produces sellouts, and provides strong competition on the track. So it's going to be hard to replicate if we were to move, he said, adding that discussions are ongoing. I would not limit something just to Miami if we were to rotate it. I think you'd have a broader look at venues that could host a championship, but short term, we're in Phoenix, we're extremely happy there, and we want to make sure that whatever we do, we continue to grow the sport when it relates to the playoffs. NASCAR owns the Phoenix track, and since 2020 has held the championship there. I already said that. After it completed a $178 million renovation in 2018. The track has sold out 7 consecutive Cup Series races, which helping NASCAR recoup its investment and giving it incentive to keep the championship event in that market, which also has suitable weather in November when the ultimate round is held. The 2025 schedule has already been released, with Phoenix again returning as the championship event, so any change would happen in 2026 at the earliest. It was unclear what other markets are in the mix and whether NASCAR was talking with related municipalities about getting hosting fees to bring its championship race there. Before moving the race to Phoenix, NASCAR had held it at Homestead-Miami since 2002. Homestead is one of the legacy ISC tracks that NASCAR now owns outright after the France family took ISC private in 2019 and absorbed it into NASCAR Holdings' portfolio. One potential option beyond Homestead and Phoenix would be Las Vegas Motor Speedway, owned by Speedway Motorsports. But it's possible that NASCAR could look at options outside the universe of Speedway Motorsports and legacy ISC tracks. So there's a lot to think about when we're talking about the championship race. One, this basically means the playoffs in some way, shape, or form are staying about, which really we did not doubt, because NASCAR will refuse to admit that this playoff format is bad. But if we are going to have this format, which unfortunately we will, there's a lot to factor in when it comes to the championship race, where we have it, and it also has to do with the schedule itself. Look at where the final race of the season has been for the last 20, 30, even if you include Atlanta in that mix. It's been in November, or it's been in October, whenever they used to end the season, I think back in the 90s and stuff. It's been at a time of the year where it works. So that really limits your option if we're going to continue to run into November with the calendar, whether it's the first weekend of November, if we go to the second weekend of November, whenever it is, that's really going to limit your options. Homestead Miami is going to work. Miami, Florida, a beach, tropical, it doesn't get cold there. I mean, I'm sure they have cold fronts, but it doesn't get winter weather there. Phoenix, desert, doesn't get cold there during the day. Gets cold at night, but, that part of year you're fine. Same story with Las Vegas. But if we start looking at other racetracks, NASCAR-owned or SMI-owned, that's where it gets complicated. A lot of people are going to say Charlotte. A lot of people are going to say Kansas. And right now, with this generation of car, that would make for a great championship race. Problem is, those two places get cold in November, and so therefore that would be a little bit of a limiting factor. Now, they don't get blizzards or anything, but it could impact the racing and whatnot. tires and just a bunch of other stuff could get impacted by the cold. So if you were to go to either of those racetracks or any other tracks up north, like in this situation, New Hampshire, eliminated. That's not happening. Dover, nope. Pocono, nope. Watkins Glen, it's a road course, it won't happen, but nope. Too cold there. So it just really restricts your options in terms of what you can do with the weather alone, and that's only one talking point we've had. So the weather just really restricts you, and once we do that, here's what our stretch of tracks would be. Atlanta, geographically, it's a big city. It's got the right weather. Unfortunately, it's a super speedway now. I don't think they would do that, but if they did, oh boy, buckle up. You'll hear a long rant from me. But I guess technically that's an option. We got to list it. Homestead, Phoenix, Vegas as an option. I'm going to get yelled at for this, but geographically, it's close to Dallas, Texas. Weather-wise, I live here in Dallas, Texas, and our lowest high of the year, or at least since, like March, February, since the last winter, our lowest high so far has been like 52, and it's almost mid-December. It is mid-December, so we don't have problems with the cold in November, so Texas Motor Speedway is an option. Now, they might have to do some renovating. They have done some renovating, actually. I will give them credit. They got some nice little, in the area underneath the grandstands, they've actually done a nice job cleaning some of that up. They got some nice seating options now. They got like the little bars and whatever. But I don't know what else you could renovate there. Maybe the pit road, the garages and whatever. Make a garage experience like Vegas and Talladega. But that could potentially be an option. It's just remember, it's got to be a normal oval. I don't think they'll go to a road course. I really don't think they'll go to a super speedway, but you never know with NASCAR. And then the wild card in this, the wild card is if it happens, which is a big fat if, Auto Club. If I'm sticking with the conspiracy I spewed off a few months ago, I'm convinced that Auto Club was NASCAR's, that was their plan for a permanent championship race track. It's close to LA, big market, big venue. Well, they were reducing the size of the venue, but big name, everyone knows who it is or where it is. And I was convinced that they were going to make that like their championship track. They were going to make it a really big deal. They were going to make it all nice and fresh and new and modern. But that track does not seem like it's going to get built. But if it does, that's a wild card. But if we were to rotate championship races, I personally am for it. A few years ago, I made a fake schedule, like if I were to do it. I said Vegas should be the championship race if we're going to stick with this format. It's a 1.5 mile track. It's near a big city, a tourist attraction. And also, this car races really well on the 1.5 miles. So that would be pretty neat. But Homestead's another great option. Obviously, Homestead has always raced great. Now, I had a couple of bad races back in the 550 package, but what track didn't have bad races in the 550 package? But also, it's near Miami, just like Vegas, near a major city, tourist attractions. Like, those are two places that it's a pretty good site to have. So Vegas and Homestead, Phoenix, if those are the only three, I'd be fine with that. Personally, if those were the three that rotated. And my one complaint about Phoenix is the actual racetrack itself. Like Phoenix itself, kind of like Vegas and Miami, it's a big city. It's got that pull. The weather's nice this time of year, or that time of year, November. So Phoenix has got a great pull to it too. It's just the racetrack is it's not great. And then in this article, it mentions looking at options outside of SMI and legacy ISC tracks. And the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Indianapolis. They really going to host a championship at Indianapolis? Once again, that's up north. Roger Penske owns that track. I'm trying to think of other tracks that aren't owned by those two groups. That's all I got off the top of my head. So let me know what your thoughts are. Where do you want to see the championship race? If I were to rank where, I would go Vegas, Homestead, well, you'd have to adjust the calendar for the rest of mine because I'd go then Kansas, Charlotte, hot take, Texas, because Texas has improved a lot as a racing track since that surface has started to wear out. That's my top 5. I'm going to go mile and a halves for my top 5. Sorry to burst any short track fans' bubbles, but that's how I feel about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video this afternoon or live stream. Go vote. Right now, diecast review is the choice by the people, and here we listen to the people.